How do you set yourself up to win at a listing appointment? Let's talk about the pre-appointment steps that you should be taking in order to get yourself in an advantageous position to take the listing. Hey, I'm Dan Beer with eXp Realty. This is Agent Academy, and let's jump into the steps that I recommend that you take in order to best position yourself for success at that appointment. It takes a ton of energy and a lot of time, a lot of investment to get those listing appointments. Hopefully you're doing all the role play and all the practice it takes to get them at the speed and at the volume and velocity that you want them at. But once you're there, how can you show up and not just be on the same playing field as everybody else? How can you show up with an advantage? How can you show up where possibly not only do you have more information than anybody else you're competing with, but perhaps you're already positioned to win, where the seller is predisposed to choose you to sell their home. So here's a few steps, and I want to go through them. Number one is you see the pre-listing package. Pre-listing package, as soon as that appointment is set, I want to make sure that you have a pre-listing package that you're sending off in the mail. And I would recommend that you use something like FedEx or DHL. Use a business delivery service because that's what business people do. Now, if it's same day or you can't get the package there on time, you could also leave it at their door. But in that listing package, in that pre-listing package, and I go through this in full detail in our CEO course, but you want to make this a shock and awe package. And all that means is that when they open it up, there's so much information there that builds authority. Okay, that's the number one rule of a pre-listing package. It's not meant to present for you. It's not meant to replace the listing presentation. So sometimes people are putting too much information in it. But what this is meant to do is position you as the authority above anybody else that they should, it's a no-brainer that they would choose you. So in our package, we have our VIP seller program details, our 129 steps to sell a listing, our home package. And basically both of those booklets are built to overwhelm that seller with information of, my gosh, there's so much that goes into a home sale. Thank God these guys know what those steps are. This is somebody that's clearly thought through every one of those steps. We also include testimonial letters, and we're talking about pages and pages and pages of testimonials. So anytime a testimonial is left on say Zillow or on Realtor or on Google or on Facebook or anywhere, we aggregate them and we add them to this testimonial booklet that's also included in the pre-listing package, and we send that off with a cover letter as well. So the other thing from a psychology perspective or from a positioning perspective is, think about it. How many agents out there are going to actually send off a professional package like that ahead of the appointment? Not many. There's thousands and thousands of agents in most of our markets, but not many, and really just a very small handful, are going to do something as professional as what we just discussed, and so you're going to be immediately positioned and differentiated away from the pack. So the pre-listing package, that's step one in your in getting you set up before you've even shown up at their doorstep. Second is get their price. So when you're qualifying the appointment on the phone, when you're setting that appointment, it is critical that you push for their number. Okay, so you're going to want to ask, great, so what would you say what would you say the home is worth today, or in your estimation, what's the current value of your home? And be prepared for them to say something like, oh, well, that's what you're here, that's what you're there for, that's what we're calling you, or, you're the expert, you tell us. And you have to be ready to push back with something like, I absolutely can appreciate that. In fact, we're going to go through so much detail to completely understand the value of your property when we're there that, I'm going to show up and do that all for you. But if you had to take a wild guess, what would you say that value is right now? The whole point is you need to understand where they are. Okay, if value is here, do they know that value is, are they thinking somewhere in this range, or are they thinking way up here? Or are they thinking way down here, though? That's a lot more rare, as you could imagine, right? So you want to understand, are they realistic to probable value, or are they in the, up in space somewhere? And the reason you want to know that is because now you know at that listing presentation how much data you have to present. The more skewed their understanding is from reality, the more you're going to want to spend on the numbers, on data, on just completely showing them and building authority that you have more information than they could ever hope to have, and building a case for price. If they're already realistic with price, you could spend your time elsewhere at the presentation. So you have to get that number. Now, you still may not get it over the phone, though I should mention this whole thing about not getting it over the phone. You'd be amazed how often they'll just give you the number. Okay, if you ask, you will get the number more often than not right there. So what do you think your home's probably worth right now, roughly speaking? Oh, roughly speaking, X. You're going to get it most of the time. But if they don't, and they say you're the expert, and you push back, and they still don't, then here's the next thing I would do. At the appointment, ask them how much have you been tracking the market, or have you been keeping track of what's selling around you, or how often do you track sales numbers in the neighborhood? And now, if they're like, oh, we track everything, we look at Zillow every day, or whatever it might be, then you have an idea that that they understand where values are at. Or if they don't, then that'll clue you in as well. It'll lead to a different style of presentation for you. Number 3 here, understand your competition. So understand who you're competing against. I don't like to ask, and a lot of agents are trained to ask, so how many agents are you interviewing? I don't like that question, because if they're not interviewing other agents, you just gave them the idea to interview other agents. So why would we do that? So I don't like to ask that. But what I do like to ask is what is going to be your process for getting your home to market? What is going to be your process for listing your home with an agent? That's a great question, because we've heard answers that range from, well, we just need you to come over, and we've seen all your marketing, and we just need you to help us through it, to, well, we're interviewing you and this person and this person and this person, or we're interviewing you and 2 others. But that's going to give you an idea of how much competition you have. So you have to understand, where are you competing? And you have to also not give them the idea to make you compete in the event that you weren't going to have to. Hope that makes sense. Finally, know the data and not comps. Okay? If you show up just talking about the comps and the comps and the comps, guess what every other agent that also interviewed did? They did the same thing. All they talked about was the comps. So now you haven't differentiated yourself. And the entire game of real estate, the entire game of business, is differentiation. Okay, remember that money flows to differentiation. Money flows to difference, not to similarity. So know the data. And I don't just mean understanding that such and such competing home is for sale. I'm saying know that it's not only for sale now, but that it was for sale a year ago, it had failed to sell, and that they've switched agent twice. Know that the one down the way, not only did it sell for $450,000, but it had a pull. Know the data. Know the story behind the data. That's where you need to be, so you show up as an expert. It's the expert that's going to take the listing. It's the expert that's going to have the most authority. And taking these steps are going to help you show up with the leg up against your competition, and to immediately build rapport so that you can focus your energy at that listing appointment where it matters. I'm Dan Beer. This is Agent Academy. I'm with eXp Realty. If there's any other way I could help you or your business, or if you're curious about our mastermind and growth group, just reach out. Looking forward to being with you.